Hey Joe, you want
Watch an isekai?
Yeah,
Hey Joe, you want
Watch an isekai?
sure.
Hey Joe, you want
Watch an isekai?
Oh, okay.
Hey Joe, you want
Watch an isekai?
Jesus Christ, how many fucking
Isekai based series are there?
Joe?
Hey Joe, you want
Watch an isekai?
No, I don't want to fucking play another goddamn.
Isekai based series.
Hey Joe, you want
Watch an isekai?
Stop it.
Hey Joe, you want
Watch an isekai?
Oh,
Hey Joe, you want
Watch an isekai?
kill me.
Joe, you want
A motherfucking isekai? So I have a new and totally original idea for a new series. Picture this. We take an ordinary main character, lives a relatively mundane life, probably make them a high school student. I think that would be a safe bet. Until, picture this, one day they get reincarnated into a different world. Probably by a truck or something. I'm still working out the details. But then in this new world, we'll probably make it fantasy or medieval like. So, what do you think based off of just that? What do you mean it already exists? It's called an isekai? Well, fuck! Alright. Now, I know the isekai genre setting has become more saturated these days than an otaku who just refuses to shower for whatever reason. But hear me out. So I recently checked out a series called So I'm a Spider, So What? And it's actually really good. I will preface this by saying that I only read the manga, and anybody that's familiar with this series probably let out an actual audible gasp, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But no gatekeeping if you're a light novel reader. Chill out and just listen to what I have to say. So essentially, this story follows a high school girl who is sitting in class and suddenly the whole world just kind of crumbles and goes to black, and she wakes up in another world as a spider, which is, I guess, considered one of the weakest mobs of monsters in this fantasy setting. And the first notable aspect of this is it's immediately very gamified, where there's like bars over the head and like an overworld chat voice that speaks to the main character. And it's quickly learned that this story is about survival and growth, because it literally starts off with just like a massacre of just trying to survive birth and like not being slaughtered straight out the gate. And that's a really cool premise that carries through the entirety of this, in that survivability of being super weak rather than being this overpowered character that's thrown into the world and just knows all this stuff. But the human intellect and like smarts that she has just from just having her conscience transfer over into this tiny creature is really cool, because she kind of outsmarts things that would usually think on the same scale as just whatever her mob character is. And it's this dynamic that's super interesting. But then at the same time, it's so gamified to the point I literally mean like it's like an RPG where you get skills and she'll learn magic or different like enhancements to her web or growth as an evolution. It's literally kind of like Pokemon. And they make references in this series, like legitimate, like full-on references, especially to Pokemon and other forms of media that you will quickly know. But she just like, it's all about this adaptation and following her as she grows through this dungeon and tries to escape the dungeon. And it's really just such a basic premise with just so much depth to it that it's so interesting to follow. On top of that, it's this huge mystery of why did she get transported here and what is she working towards. It's literally like every single battle is about survival for the most part, especially even towards later where she gets really strong. It's still an issue. However, The difference with the light novel and the currently being adapted anime, which follows more from the light novel, is it shows why they get transported literally immediately, as well as other classmates that got transported to this world, which you wouldn't even know about. The manga only follows the main character and nothing else, and has like little stories every other volume in the manga that kind of gives a little bit of what's going on, like the bigger picture. So I think it probably will still lead to that point. So while it doesn't change the story, the manga heavily cuts out the big plot that's happening. So I think that's why a lot of people will kind of dunk on the manga. But that's actually kind of what I liked. It was so focused on this character's development that I actually really like this character, and I care a lot about them and the growth they've gone through because it's so heavily focused. And even with the side characters, like they give these little tidbits of these stories of like these demon lords and these humans on the surface world and all these things happening that are like, it's just enough that it's like, that's really interesting. I'm looking forward to when these mesh, but it doesn't do them at the same time, so you're not like constantly following the main character. But then as soon as you start to get interested in that, it flips to the other characters, and then you get invested in those characters, and then it flips back. It doesn't do that. It just follows the main character for the manga, and I really liked that. It made the character development fantastic. So to each their own, depending on how you want to follow this series, but that is something you should know. I mean, I guess by the title of the series, I knew it was based off of a light novel. It just has one of those titles. But I didn't expect it to be like that different. And I guess it's not really different. It's just more focused on one thing and just kind of gets to the point. So it's much more fast paced. Now, I think the most interesting part I found from this series is how dark it kind of is and kind of real it feels, as real and relevant as that can be to it being a fantasy monster main character. But what I mean by that is, this isn't like your typical just does the right thing every single time main character. She's a monster, like literally a monster in this, and she has to do what she can to survive. Everything's trying to kill her constantly, so in turn she kills back. If she's attacked, she makes sure to eliminate any threat to her own life. So this very quickly teaches that this world is just kill or be killed. So she will quite literally, like, it just shows like poisoning and just suffocating and murdering all these other monsters and even humans later down the line when they get more introduced. But it is so brutal to the point that there's legitimately some scenes where you can genuinely feel the fear in some of the enemies that she faces when she like traps them, because she's a spider, so it has this whole like you've fallen into my trap feel to it. And like, oh my god, there is legit, I forget which volume it might be, it's like the third or fourth, probably like the third volume, where she just traps a bunch of like these like ape monsters, and they are in an army, and they have her so outnumbered that they're just confident and they would throw their lives down to kill her at any cost. But then it turns to her like actually capturing them, and like them all just being stuck together and not being able to escape, and like trying to wiggle out of it while she picks off one at a time like down the line. And that shit is legitimately like traumatizing. Like, you won't walk away from this scarred, but what I mean is, it's just like when you kind of put yourself in the shoes of this character, or even the other like monsters that she comes in contact with, it just feels surreal and just very grim, because it is straight up death. Like, they're not just being knocked out and fainting, they're dying. Like, they're full on dying and then being consumed. And it's just like, that harsh reality, it sets in quick, but it doesn't leave anytime soon. And that is super interesting, because just seeing that, because normally it's making the right choices, but she outright will just kill out of instinct sometimes, or in self-defense, to the point where she even starts thinking about it and like developing a mindset of, am I doing the right thing? Should I have let that live rather than just gaining XP for this game RPG world? and it gets kind of philosophical, but not to the point where it shoves it in your face and it feels like it's droning on. It just drops these little tidbits that are interesting enough that are like, well, damn. Now, with all the praise, I do have to mention the anime that's currently being adapted. And I watched the first couple episodes, and I'm just gonna say it's not for me. Mostly because every creature in this is almost like 90% of the time CG animated, and that it's not terrible to the point where it'll like hurt your eyes to look at, and I even did kind of start getting used to it, but I just didn't enjoy it. Like, I was actively forcing myself to be like, just look past it. The story and like content of this is actually good, and it's jarring. I'm not a fan of it at all. But I will say, the voice actress for the main character in this series kills it. Holy hell. I mean, I was thoroughly entertained. I have a stroke in the middle of trying to explain this. So good. She puts so much, like, you can feel the hard work in this character and just, like, really, like, owning it and just committing to just the over-the-top acting, or just the despair or the celebration, and just, like, the ridiculous English is amazing, too, in it. But, yeah, I mean, if you can get past the CG, I think you'll genuinely enjoy this series, but it's not good. Like, it definitely drops a couple points because of it, unfortunately, because this probably could have looked really good if it was just proper 2D. Because, I mean, even, like, the human characters are CG sometimes. It's just kind of like one of those things where it's 2D if it's real close in the screen, sometimes, and then most of the time, like I said, literally, like, 90% I think is a fair percent to say that it's used CG while the background is 2D. If you can get past that, definitely check it out. But read the manga for sure. I highly recommend it. It's very detailed, too, so you'll enjoy that for sure. And then if you really want the true full story, then check out the light novel. I haven't personally read it at this moment of recording, but I'm sure, I know it's worth checking out. I'm aware of it, so I might, but I just don't want to read a whole book right now, so I like the pretty pictures. My 8 brain, monkey, just like, I'm simple right now, so it's the one medium I wanted to go through. Also, I was surprised because I couldn't believe I even was able to get copies of this. Like, I had just heard of this series because of this currently airing season with the anime. So that was the only reason I was aware of it. And then to find the manga was just like, swipe, like, okay, like, if it's being presented, then I'll absolutely check it out. It's right there. Also, volume 6, I believe? Yeah, volume 6 is where it gets real, because it starts introducing, like, the overarching characters that are kind of cut from the early parts of the manga. So even while it's different, it does include some of the stuff, and I find it actually interesting, rather than just being told outright what the overarching plot is and, like, what's going on in the world, it kind of just drip feeds it to you. And I don't know, that level of mystery is almost what's the most interesting part of it. And I definitely think volume 6 is right where it was like, all right, I'm in. Like, this has cemented my interest in this series to see where it goes, because I mean, it introduces so many characters that it's just like, well, damn, who is the Demon King or Prince, and all this order of people, and the humans and the monsters and the, oh my god, it's so cool. It also just outright drops a cell phone from the sky, which doesn't really get followed up on now that I think about it. It was like one scene just to, like, have the people of this world go, what is that? And then it kind of just moves on, but it puts enough questions out there that I want to know the answers. Now the problem is, will they get answered properly later down the line? Because what this does in 8 volumes that are translated currently in English, it's essentially the prologue. I shit you not, it literally just leaves the dungeon of, like, the starting area in those first volumes where, like, the world literally opens up, and the author even said, like, yeah, this is the prologue of my story. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I like kind of was hoping it would just end, like it would wrap up when you get to the surface type thing, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, all right, we've created this giant world that you've gotten accustomed to, but it's only a fraction of the size of everything. It's just like, god dang it, like that could either really make the story really good if it's done well, or it could totally shit the bed. So we'll see. We'll see. That's all I really have to talk about for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it, share it around with anybody you think would be interested. Go check out this series. It is genuinely worth your time. I'm pleasantly surprised by how it turned out. I thought it was just going to be a kind of meh, run-of-the-mill, mid-tier show. But no, I actually got a thorough amount of enjoyment from it, and it kind of was refreshing to see. If you're not subscribed already, what are you waiting for? You watched to the end of this video, you might as well do it. I'll wait. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you in the next one.
Peace.